spirit of this revolution is not going away.
This is the Ron Paul Liberty Report with Ron Paul, Daniel McAdams, and Chris Rossini.
We are all ambassadors of the Ron Paul doctrine, and it's so simple. Just tell the truth.
An idea whose time has come cannot be stopped by any army or any government.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning into the Liberty Report. With us today, we have Daniel McAdams, our co-host. Daniel, good to see you.
Good morning, Dr. Paul. How are you this morning?
Doing well.
Good.
Doing well.
All right. All right.
But we'll start off with some figures and some activity going on that I would say in some parts of our establishment and our political system, we're not doing so well.
Doing so well, yeah.
So we're at war. I wonder how many years of my life that we were at war. A good many years.
Yeah.
And it continues. It seems like there's some people who get in charge of our country. They sort of enjoy war. They must think it's like a big football game or something.
Yeah.
But sometimes they enjoy seeing war, but they're not so anxious to go themselves. Have you ever heard of that happening?
It's called chicken hawks.
They don't want to participate, but they want to direct it. They want to be the coaches and tell, let's go take on this country. But anyway, there's a lot of that going on. It looks like this short war, the plan for the short war in Iran is not going to be a short war.
It didn't work out.
And
No.
I think the news recently is indicating that it may be just adding a lot more months, even years to this, because, there's a lot of activity going on over there. But the activity yesterday, the acceleration of the bombing and the killing and the interference in the oil business is reflected, on the price of oil. And you follow that closely, and that's up sharply today. And I know Daniel's very selfish in thinking about this because he watches the gasoline prices in his car, and he knows that if it goes up in the wholesale, he's going to be paying more money.
Exactly.
So that is something happening. But Hegseth, in his demands for the Pentagon, somebody did a calculation, and they must not like Hegseth, and he's not my favorite person either.
No.
And it says Hegseth is demanding U.S. households pay $5,000 more per year to fund the Pentagon. Yeah. But that isn't even counting the concerns that a few people have about how about just the price of the gasoline for cars.
Yeah.
So this is a big deal, and I always argue that these terrible wars that go on and have gone on for a long time, it's the economic policy, the economic foolishness, and overextension, and the manipulation of the monetary system brings this to an end. It's not going to be brought to an end. They have negotiations. They have periods of peace and renegotiations and all that, but it never seems to do much good. And I think that this thing is getting way out of control. And the oil prices are significant. There are some people who think that things are moving smoothly with Venezuela. Oh, we got more oil. And guess what? Maybe we have, because it just shows that the news today is the U.S. has collected about $15 billion of money of Venezuela oil. And then the question is, where is it?
Where is it? Yeah.
Sometimes we, hold stuff back and never return it, and they don't call it theft. So, the costs are going up, the difficulties are going up, and there was some more fighting. A lot of bombs dropped last night, and I guess Trump has, I think, how many days has he had having huge bomb drills at 11, 12 days now, every night. So you'd think he'd get tired of that stuff but if you listen to them, it's all working.
Yeah.
They're excited, or at least they want to sound exciting, so the American people will leave them alone, and they want to help, reverse these polls that don't look so good for the administration. So that is deeply embedded in what's going on in Yemen now, and there were some Yemenis taking on some ships, getting the oil and breaking the rules that change as always. And right now, to me, this looks like a very, very dangerous thing, dangerous escalation. And maybe this will disappear tomorrow, but I don't believe so. I think this is, it's getting bigger and bigger, and people are getting more intense, more anger, and more bombs being dropped. And I'm sure both countries are losing. Not many people really win with wars that go on, and so they work hard to try to be the winners. But right now, I would suggest that there's so much lying. It's pretty hard for us to say, well, we know what the score is. We know who's winning done what, because if you listen to the people who are bragging how successful they are, wow, these American troops and our bombs and our foreign policy, it is slick, and it accomplishes what it wants immediately, and they do it, and they make a lot of money doing it. They just collect the money, and they expand the empire and think that they can continue to make money and pay for all the bills. Not true, and I think we're seeing the consequence of a lousy foreign policy that is shared by both political parties.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we're seeing now is an escalation, a big escalation. If you put that first clip on, this is what happened overnight, Dr. Paul. Yemeni forces attacked 2 Saudi oil tankers in the Red Sea. Now, Yemeni means the Houthis. Ansar Allah is the movement they are. It's not the country is still divided, nevertheless. So the Houthis have joined in the fight. They launched attacks on 2 Saudi oil tankers in the Red Sea as part of the enforcement of a new maritime blockade on Saudi Arabia. Now, this happened over the weekend, Dr. Paul, because what happened is that the Saudis, a Yemeni delegation to the funeral of the Ayatollah was coming back to Yemen. They were about to land, and the Saudis came in and bombed the runway. So they had to they couldn't land at the capital. They had to land at a smaller other airport. But that obviously ticked off the Houthis, and so they sent a few missiles to Saudi Arabia, blow up some pretty important stuff over there. And then they said, okay, well, you guys can't export your oil. You can't come through the strait. And that strait is actually even smaller than Hormuz, so they can definitely control it. So that has started up the war again. And if you go to that next one, why would the Saudis do such a dumb thing? Well, Trump reportedly gave Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman the green light to bomb the Sana'a airport. An attack was carried out to prevent a plane from Iran that was carrying a delegation of Yemeni officials who attended the funeral of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. They may have actually had something else on the plane, if you go to that next one, because they may have actually had some military equipment on that plane. Nevertheless, what happened is when the Saudis bombed the runway, they opened up a can of worms. And so now you're seeing, I think it's about 7 million barrels a day, I could be wrong, that is not being exported from Saudi Arabia through the Red Sea. And that's why we're seeing the oil now at 100 and climbing. I think it's up almost 7% today, and it will continue. So it really leaves Trump with few options right now. He's the one who gave the green light for the attack on the Houthis. I'm not sure what his game is. I'm not sure who he's listening to. If anyone right now, certainly the people close around him are urging him to escalate. You can actually take that down now. Are urging him to escalate, but there's the question is, to what end? What is the strategy? Nobody knows it.
I think the president at times takes things very personal.
Yeah.
And he's been pretty upset ever since the killing of the Ayatollah. But the whole thing is, they can't put him in the position of, what if somebody did that to us? And I think the word should be, why did we go to extreme to support murdering a president and a leader of a country, controversial as it may be, but but his calculation of doing this was that I think he sincerely believed people say, this is the way you end it.
Yeah.
We took the leader out of Venezuela, and then we took over Venezuela. So, okay, if we get rid of this Ayatollah, that's just a little religious excesses. So that will solve their problem. Again, you don't have to guess what, but we all know that it really backfired. And then the admission came. That's the blunt out admission sometimes on Trump are really amazing. He essentially says, I didn't realize this guy was pretty popular.
Yeah, exactly. And this really has not been the U.S. way of war. This is the Israeli way of war. They do the decapitation strikes. The U.S., at least in the past, has at least gone through the motions of a trial. Remember Saddam Hussein's trial? He was killed, but they went through the motions of a trial. This whole idea that you start the war by killing the leadership of the other country is a new idea, and it's not a very successful idea, like you say, because that next group came in, especially in Iran, and they were radicalized by the fact that the leaders had been killed. As you said, as we would feel at home if someone came in and even if you didn't like Trump, if they decapitated our leadership, we'd be pretty ticked off. It
would be a bad sign.
Yeah.
And yet, they're in the business of fibbing, lying, changing the tune and trying to convince the people certain things are happening and then they're not really happening. So they have to live with that. And then they have to live with the fact that their judgment was wrong in doing this. And I think that's what they're realizing. So what do they do? They ask for more money, more bombs, because, the intensity of the past week, it might be the most bombs dropped during the war so far, because it's every night they're bombing the living daylights out of the place. But it's a thing that is going to continue as long as people won't live up to the requirement that you figure, how'd this thing get started? Yeah. Whose fault was this? And why? And then, the people in charge right now, the administration said, well, it's because Iran did this, and the Ayatollah, they were going to have a nuclear bomb, and on they go. And yet, right now, the jury is out. There is a trial. And the jury is out, and it's showing up in the polls, and the people aren't buying into all this nonsense of the necessity of us going over there and responding to Hegseth. $5,000 per family probably is not enough. Before you know it, after they get this extra money right now, there'll be another one even before the end of this fiscal year. They'll have to come back again.
No kidding. Well, Trump is furious with the Houthis. I don't know what he thought they would do if he encouraged the Saudis to attack them. I don't know what his calculation was, but here you can see his frustration in today's Truth Social post. If you go to that next clip, he is angered. He said a year ago, the United States of America attacked very powerfully the Houthis for their interference with commerce and trade by shooting at ships. Since that time, and during our conflict with Iran, they have acted very responsibly. Unfortunately, now they are starting it up again, shooting at 2 Saudi Arabian ships last night. Please let this truth serve to represent that if they do this again, the U.S. will hold Iran responsible, in that the Houthis are a surrogate and a proxy of Iran, and major military punishments will be inflicted upon Iran and, of course, the Houthis, nevertheless, who I'm very disappointed with in that they have until now acted very professionally and smart. Thank you for your attention to this matter. It's pretty disjointed, Dr. Paul. He's mad at the Houthis, so he's going to attack the Iranians. He shouldn't have encouraged the Houthis to close that strait, because that's what's causing all the problems, and it's causing, if you go to the next one here, global oil prices hit $1 a barrel amid attacks in the Red Sea. It's going to be a serious, serious issue, Dr. Paul, because, as we mentioned yesterday, time is not on our side. This oil is not getting out, and it's not just oil, it's all the petroleum products. All of the things down here at the chemical plants that they're making, all the plastics, all the things that we need, they're not getting out. I think Iran has a much higher pain threshold than the United States when it comes to this. He
uses the word surrogate.
Yeah.
And he ought to ask that about our military.
Yeah.
Could we be acting as a surrogate for somebody else, or are we speaking for the people? But the people are speaking out right now, and they say, we don't need this war.
Yeah.
So, but then why are we doing it? Or could we possibly be a surrogate for some other special interest group?
Yeah.
And I think that should be investigated. I think we should have hearings on that and
Yeah.
let the people know what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you mentioned how that the U.S. has been attacking Iran now for 12 straight days, but Iran has been matching fire for fire, and we talked about it yesterday. The bases that are being debasification is taking place. Well, that's continuing in a serious way. Now, there's that one clip that I sent you from X. It's more of a GIF, but it shows these are the barracks, Dr. Paul, that were hit last night. This is our military base in Jordan. If you can go to that, here we go. If you can go, you can see what happened to those barracks right there. They were hit. This is a satellite photo. This is Kuwait. Sorry, gone. These are U.S. military barracks in Kuwait. If any U.S. military personnel were in those, there's absolute certainty that there are serious casualties. Now, that's in addition to what happened last night in Jordan. If you go to that next clip, you'll see U.S. air power assets in Jordan are being moved. If you go to that one, I know I've got you running around here, but go forward. I'm going to skip this part. It's a good one, but I got to skip it. So look at this, Dr. Paul. I think these are this is in Jordan. Now go to the next one. This is also in Jordan, I believe. But what's happening this is Egypt's Intel Observer. It looks like the U.S. has shifted a significant portion of assets to the Ovda Air Force Base in southern Israel following recent Iranian strikes. And you can see those strikes there. So what's happening, this is a long way of saying, what's happening that Iran is pursuing a strategy of taking out all of our radar, which they've basically done, and now they're hitting barracks because they know that we can't tolerate casualties among our military. We don't want to see Americans die over there. And so that's what they're doing. So they seem to be, unlike the U.S., unfortunately, the Iranians seem to have a strategy, and right now it's working.
Yes, and that baffles them.
Yeah.
But we talked about, and I mentioned the other day about, we're not battling the Iran of 1953.
Yeah.
And there was a coup there that we organized and did it with the British. And it's a different system now. And they must live in the past. And they said, well, yeah, but we have better weapons. But weapons are important. But how many times have they compared the people with the most weapons? Who do you think had the most weapons in the Vietnam War?
Yeah.
And yet, why did we really lose that war? I mean, it wasn't just a compromise and surrender. I mean, we lost it. We had to get out of there. Yeah. And but in a way, we've done this so many times because I think. When you think that you have this comes from the fact that we have quit having a direct debate and a vote, and even if it's not a perfect system, that we believe they are they are the enemy and they are the target, and we're going to take care of that, and that is what happened. And when you think about it, what we were up against with the Japanese and the Germans, to fight, a lot was done in a short period of time. And look how much dumb stuff we do. For how long were we in Afghanistan? 19 years or something. And how about the Middle East? We're still in most of those countries. We don't ever completely leave.
You asked a great question, though. Why did we lose Vietnam? Well, the same reason we lost Afghanistan, because they were fighting for their homeland.
Yeah.
That is the key here, and that's why we're losing in Iran now. We lost Vietnam, we lost Afghanistan over and over again because people will fight differently when it's for their homeland, as we would too here in the U.S.
Yes, that is a good point because people don't see it that way. But I think when I was doing the campaigning on these subjects, people liked, when they understood that, they said that really is a type of a golden rule, So if you don't want to be done to you, why can you do it to somebody else?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense, and it's not very practical. But what they don't do is quit or change. They just buckle down and do it on and on. Like this past week. The intensity of Trump making the announcement, we're going to do it every night until they surrender.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem to be working.
No, it doesn't seem to be working. Well, the second thing is more of an update, Dr. Paul, that we want to do, and that's unfortunately bad news. And that is yesterday, if you go to that next clip, the House passes the 2027 National Defense Authorization Act with the section integrating the U.S. and Israeli militaries. Now, as we mentioned yesterday, Dr. Paul, Thomas Massie tried to get an amendment to the Rules Committee to at least allow a vote on cutting that part out, known as Section 219. The Rules Committee said, no way, Jose, not even a vote for you on this. We don't want to debate it. It just has to stay in the bill. So it was the NDAA passed largely along party lines in a 216 to 212 vote. 7 Republicans voted against it, and 2 didn't vote, meaning that the Democrats could have blocked the legislation. But 6 Democrats voted yes on the sweeping military spending bill, despite Trump's continued war against Iran, which was launched without authorization. This is from Dave DeCamp, by the way, I should mention. Now, who are those people? Let's go to the next one. Here's the vote on passage. If you go to that next clip, 209 to 7. 7 Republicans voting no. Then you had those 6 Democrats voting yes. Go to the next one. Let's see who they are. The Democrats who voted for the bill. If you go to that next clip, Henry Cuellar, Donald G. Davis, Jared Golden, Vincent Gonzalez, Adam Gray, and Marie Perez. Now, this is the important, more interesting one. The Republicans who voted against it included, and we should have expected this, Thomas Massie, but also Chip Roy, interesting, from Texas. I haven't looked up his reasoning. Anna Luna, Margaret Hageman, Elijah Crane, Tim Burchett, and Josh Brichin from Oklahoma. Very interesting. Those 7, if they voted for it for the reason if they voted against it for the reason Thomas Massie voted against it, well, they definitely deserve a pat on the back then, because they're standing up for American sovereignty. Doing it.
They changed the name of the Department of Defense to what.
Yeah.
And I think they need to. This bill they just passed, the NDAA, they're still hiding behind this pretense. So what I think they should be required to do is tell the truth in the titles. National War Authorization Act. That's what they're doing.
Exactly.
There's nothing here. Matter of fact, it's doing the opposite of defending this country or protecting us, because we're participating in the destruction of our economic system, and we're not doing that well. Our victories are just hollow victories. Even if we win the battle of bombing more people and killing more civilians, right now, probably Americans are being killed now, but number-wise, but just think how many Iranians we killed and this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, but it's a war appropriation, and people, if they had to vote for, well, do you think we should, and this one article pointed out that it was a $5,000 estimate. Hegseth is the one this budget, and they're spending $5,000 per family. If they see that, you got to put this stuff in practical terms, in real terms. And I'm sure Hegseth didn't write that headline.
Yeah, no,
somebody did the calculation.
Yeah.
And it's not a good system.
No, absolutely not. Well, I'm going to close out if once again we can go to that very last clip and remind everyone, snatch up those tickets for a front row seat at the revolution. Something big is happening. It's happening in both parties, political parties. It's happening with the media. The old guard is losing its grip, and that is a good thing. And that's what we're going to explore at our conference on September 5th in Dulles, near but not in D.C., We've already mentioned we're going to have a special address sent to us by Tucker Carlson, who's talked a lot about being sick of the GOP and also sick of the Democrats. So where does that lead? That's what we're going to find out. That's what we're going to explore. You can go to ronpaulinstitute.org, and on the top you'll be able to click a button and get those tickets. And while you're at it, if you or someone you know is eligible, have them apply to be a Ron Paul Scholar for 2026. That's also up there on the top of the Ron Paul Institute page. The deadline for that is in a couple of weeks, so we got to get those applications in. It's a great program with scholarships for everyone accepted. Dr. Paul, over
Very
to you.
good. And while we're at it and talking about symbols and names and honesty and definitions, that the whole idea of our organization is called, I want to remind everybody, the Institute for Peace and Prosperity, and that really is sincerely is our goal. And I think one of the convincing things over the many, many years, decades now, of trying to understand the whole system of war and peace is that the countries that have had the maximum amount of freedom have always been, and the most prosperous. And I think Daniel mentioned the other day, I think Switzerland stayed pretty prosperous. And there was a time when Sweden was more independent. I hope they don't keep drifting away.
Yeah.
But we want people to drift in this direction, but they think that they have to do it because they're going to be attacked, because they can convince the people. Just think of the ending in what Saddam Hussein looked like when he was finally arrested. And they could turn him into a monster that was on the verge of bombing New York City with a nuclear weapon. And what are we doing now? We're still looking for the bomb that we're doing it. And one thing is, I said, Trump will say, what about? He said, you don't want Iran to have a nuclear bomb. No, I don't want Iran to have a nuclear, but I don't want a lot of other people having nuclear bombs. And there are other people in the region that have a lot of nuclear bombs.
No kidding.
So I think that everything is, but that's not going to happen. They're not going to do it voluntarily. But I do think that it was Pakistan and India that they both have nuclear bombs, and they've been living in better peace when they both had them. So maybe the argument should be, and this will be a really misinterpretation if they say, "What are you talking about?" Maybe if we didn't have this obsession with using an excuse that we have to, keep this war going because we have stopped them from having a nuclear bomb, but we're having a difficulty that is nuclear in size, economically speaking, and it's just as dangerous. And there's reason to believe that more effort in promoting peace and prosperity is worth the effort, because not touching it and not paying any attention to it, let me tell you, it'll get worse. It'll probably get worse before it gets better. But I think our side is growing in numbers, and more people in this country today would vote for peace and prosperity if they had a real honest, choice in the matter. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report. Please come back soon.
Thanks for watching the Ron Paul Liberty Report. Like and subscribe to help spread the message. And until next time, live free.
This country is